Welcome everyone to the Symbility self-paced training modules. We've designed our training modules with you, the user, in mind to take control over your learning experience. You can pause the video at any time to give yourself some hands-on practice. In this module, you're going to learn how to review an estimate. Let's get started. All right, folks, so after you've applied some line items, we need to switch our view over to the estimate so we can review our estimate and kind of see what we've built. So there are actually two different ways we can get to our estimate. One is through the Claim Explorer. Remember, your Claim Explorer always helps orient you within the claim file. So if I look down the Claim Explorer here on the left, under Estimates, I see Structure, and that's bold. Whatever is bold in there, that's your active estimate. So when you drag and drop your items, it's being applied to this active estimate. So you could click on Structure right here, or another way to access your estimate is, notice way down here at the bottom, there's a little link that says Structure as well. Clicking on this will also take you to your estimate. I personally prefer this method because it's always right here. It's a really easy one-click way to get to your estimate. So when I click on Structure, it now switches over to my estimate view. And remember, the ribbon across the top, your menu, is dynamic. So it changes. Now that I'm in my estimate view, rather than looking at a floor plan, for example, now I'm seeing some new options up here. So we'll kind of explore some different menus that you now see. But first, let's take a look at what we're seeing right in here. I see everything's broken down room by room. And really, it's the order in which you've diagrammed things. So notice, like, I've got my dining room in here, and then the kitchen. Well, what if I wanted the kitchen to be first? You can always reorder things. And that can be done by placing your cursor right on the name kitchen, for example. I'll hold my click down, and as I move my mouse, that room's gonna kind of come with me. You can kind of see that dark red line that's following my cursor. That's saying if I let go of my click right now, this room will be inserted right here. So if I let go, the kitchen's now first, then the dining room follows. So you can reorder things. Likewise, you can also reorder the line items within a room. So if you wanted to change the order of something here within the dining room, I could come in here, click on the item you want to change the order of, hold your click down, and as you move your mouse, it will come with me so I can decide where I want this inserted. So there are a few other ways we could customize the view of our estimate. So if you look across the top here, I'm in the Home tab, but I also have Insert and View, so different menus that I can explore. I'm going to click on the View tab. And here in View, we've got Grouping and Options. So we'll explore a few different things in here. First off, if I click on Grouping, I see a drop-down menu, and notice Room, Partial Room is selected. And that's why we see things in here broken down by room, because of this selection. But there really are other ways you could choose to filter this information. It's really up to you and what's going to be valuable to you in your workflow. So you can come in here and you could choose to filter this based off of items or categories, action, trade, etc. So let's just take a look at what something else would look like. So here I'm filtering it in a different way than rooms. So again, it's up to you how you want to choose to filter this information. I'm going to go back to the default Room, Partial Room. Under Options, when I click on it, you'll see that I have a few things selected. So notice the first one, Hide Diagram Objects with No Items. What that means is if you've diagrammed a room, but you have not applied any items to it, it's not going to show up in your estimate. And that's recommended because we want to keep our estimate nice and clean, easy to read and interpret, so we don't want to clutter it up with this unnecessary things. So we'll have Hide Diagram Objects with No Items selected. There are some things that really, again, it's up to you. Hide Diagram Object Details. What that's referring to is this stuff right in here, okay? So these are the room details. And so it's kind of up to you whether or not you want that displayed or not. Hide Prices. If there's ever a need to share this information with someone, but you're not ready to share prices, you can turn this on and it will show everything you've done, all your diagrams and measurements and everything, and the line items just simply without the prices. Notice in here I also have Number Items and Combine Related Subrooms selected. What this will do for us, we'll number items pretty clear. All my line items are numbered, and we'd recommend having that turned on. It just makes for a very easy way to kind of go about reading your estimate. You can tell someone, oh, go look at line item number 25, for example, and it's very easy to go locate a particular line item. Combined related subrooms, that is actually going to affect two things. If you ever join a subroom, let me show you real quickly here, if I go back to a floor plan, what subrooms are talking about. Let me go over to this more complex floor plan. For example, I've got kitchen and pantry in here. Right now they're seen as two separate rooms. If I select them both and I right click on the larger room and I go to join subrooms, the pantry is now a subroom of the kitchen, and that means if I apply an item to the kitchen, it's also going to be applying it to the pantry as well. So in terms of the estimate, what we're looking at here in the View tab, we were looking at combined related subrooms. That means if you've joined subrooms and you've applied items to those subrooms, they'll show up here under one room. They'll be joined here. There's another way that this will affect our estimate view, and it actually has to do with our roofing. So if you watched our roofing module and our estimating module, you saw us diagram a roof plan, and then we applied line items to it. Now, when you apply line items to a roof plan, each individual shape is seen kind of as its own piece of the puzzle. So here, in this example, I've got a gable roof and two gable dormers. So that's three different shapes. While you're estimating, the system sees them as three individual pieces. But notice here at my estimate view, they're all brought together under one unit, okay? And the reason they're showing up here under one unit is because of this option right in here, combine related subrooms. So I would imagine most of the time you'd want to have this turned on so all of your roof plans come together under one unit. If you ever need to turn it off though, of course you can. You come right under options and you can turn that off, and you'll see they're broken out into individual pieces. So again, you're really in control over what you're seeing here in your estimate. Whatever information or grouping is going to be valuable to you, you can go ahead and kind of customize the view of your estimate that way. Other things I'm seeing here in the View tab, there's a little section in here that says Action, and I see three options. I see Separate Columns, Show Short Form, and Before Item, and I have Before Item selected. So what this is doing for me, do you notice in here in my estimate, remove and replace, the action is showing up before the item. So that's because of this selection. Other ways you could choose to have this broken out, separate column. Now there's a column in here for my action. So you can see if I scroll up, you're seeing all these actions in this separate column. You could choose to show short form, so that's going to be kind of an abbreviated form in here. Personally, I like to have it set this way, before item. But again, it's up to you how you choose to customize your estimate view. Everything else in here, all these little boxes, notice some of them have check marks. Whatever has a check mark, that's showing as an individual column here in my estimate view. So notice I only have quantity, unit price, per, and total cost, okay? You probably don't want to come in here and select everything, and that's because things will get kind of cluttered. And again, we want our estimate to be clean and easy to read and interpret. So just choose what columns are going to be valuable to you. And then again, they'll show up here in your estimate view. I'm going to go back over to my Home tab. A few things I'd like you to be aware of. In the estimating module, if you watched our module about applying line items and navigating the database, we showed you how to change the quantity of something, and we did that by accessing the item properties. Now you can do that while you're applying line items, or you can also do it here at your estimate view. So if, for example, I wanted to go ahead and change the quantity of something, I could select my item, and there are two ways I could do it really. I could double click and it will open the item properties, or I can right click and select properties. Both will take me to the same place, the item properties. And in here, there's that quantity field. So I just wanted to point out, here's where you could change the quantity. Remember, this field is calculable, and so that means you could put in an equation. You could type in, an amount plus or divided minus, and the system will do the calculations for you. This is also where you could change the waste included and those kinds of things. And just a reminder of some other things you could do within your item properties. There's a unit price tab. Comment, remember in the estimating module we talked about an information box, and we said it's so important because it tells you exactly what's included in something. Here's all that information. It's displayed here in the comment, and if you needed to include that comment, you want to make a note of it in your estimate, there's an option right here. You can select that, and when you hit OK, it's going to be added as a note right here in my estimate view. So again, you can access your item properties, change your quantities, and a few other things in there. Notice there's a depreciation button up here as well. Now, depreciation, there's no button for global depreciation, but the same way you depreciate one single line item is the same way you would depreciate 10 items or 100 items or every single thing on your estimate. So it's kind of up to you which approach you use. Really, it's the same approach, but you're applying it in different ways. So let me show you first how I would depreciate a single line item. So you select your item, come up to depreciation. Now notice everything will be grayed out in here. So if I select calculate depreciation, now this is all active, and I can choose how I want to depreciate. It's up to you, however your company usually depreciates, or if you're doing work for a specific carrier and they have certain expectations, you'll go ahead and choose the appropriate method. So here I have life expectancy selected. Maybe I'll type in, let's say 20 years. Hit OK, and that's going to depreciate that one single item. What if I had wanted to depreciate multiple items? Well, if you hold down Control on your keyboard and then click on other items, they'll be selected as well. So notice all the items I've clicked on are highlighted in blue. I could keep going. Another way, if I hold down Shift and I click on the last one I want, notice it's going to select everything between those 2 points. Okay, so it's a fast way to select multiple items. So again, the same way I depreciate one item, it's the same way I could depreciate 10 items or 50 items, however many you have selected. It's the same process. It's always a matter of what's selected. So if I go into depreciation again, once again, you can choose how you'd like to depreciate. Now, when I depreciate it, it might look like nothing's happened here. How can you tell if you've depreciated or not? If I go back over to the View tab up here in my ribbon, and I switch over to show ACV, now there's an ACV column and a depreciation column, okay? And I can see my recoverable depreciation represented in here by that blue check mark. In terms of depreciation, just a little reminder, we talked earlier in this module about grouping, and I showed you all the different ways you could kind of choose to filter this information. So using this in conjunction with depreciation will help you to depreciate similar items all in one fell swoop. So you filter your information this way, then you'd go back home and you'd go through your depreciation process. All right, so I've been in the Home tab and we've been in the View tab. What about this Insert tab over here? So Insert, if I click on it, we'll see some different things we can insert. We can insert a title, a text, a note, even a photo or voice annotation. These are things we can kind of insert or attach to a particular line item. So for example, you would select the item that you want to attach one of these to, and I could go in here and I could choose Note. I like this one because it's really visual, right? So when I select it, I'll just type in a little test, and when I hit OK, it adds that little kind of yellow sticky note right here, and it's attached to this line item. So it's visual, you can see that's added right there. Text is just going to add kind of another numbered line item. So for example, notice now there's a numbered line item that just says test, okay? So I think probably the little yellow sticky note will be more valuable to you than that. Title, that's kind of going to give you like a grouping. So you could go ahead and add a title, and you'll see how this looks a little different than other ones. So you can kind of make your own little groups or subgroups. So if you wanted to say wall items and then sort them that way, it's just adding a little bit more organization. So it's up to you which of these tools you want to put into play and how you want your estimate to look. So guys, we've explored the Insert tab, the View tab, the Home tab, all these different tabs and menus across the top here. On your estimate view, there are some other tabs across the bottom as well. So notice this whole time so far we've been in the Estimate tab. To the right of that, we see Recap, Summary, and Totals. So let's click on each and just take a look at what we're seeing in there. So when I click on Recap, we're going to see kind of a recap based on our different floor plans and roof plans and all the different diagrams that we have in here. Then we've got Summary, and you'll see things broken down by materials, labor, equipment, etc. But really what we're working towards is a total, right? So we've been building an estimate, and our ultimate goal is to have a totals page. So if I click on Totals, that's what I'm looking at in here is my total page. Now up here under Options, notice my ribbon looks different now because remember the ribbon's dynamic. So now that I have Total selected, I'm now seeing a different ribbon and different tools. If I go under Options, I see Hide Total Materials if 0, Hide Total Labor if 0. These are things that you want to have selected because we want to keep our estimate nice and clean. So if something is zeroed out, we don't want it to show up on our estimate. So I'd recommend going in there and making sure these are selected. It's kind of a one-time selection. The things that you change up here in your ribbon, in your estimate view, once you have them set up, they'll be set up like that for your next estimate and all the claims you work, okay? Now, once they're set up, if you ever need to change something, you can always come back and do it, but generally, you'll probably have some consistency across the board from claim to claim. So what else do I see here in my estimate total page? Now, notice there's a little link in here called Adjustments for Minimum Charges. Adjustments for minimum charges might be a little different than you're used to handling things like this. So the way we do it in Symbility might be different than you're used to, but it's a pretty easy process to get used to. So here for minimum charges, basically the system's designed for you to estimate the damage. Whatever damage you see, you estimate it. So even if there's just a 4 feet by 4 feet portion of drywall on the wall, you estimate that damage. And the system really will kick into gear for minimum charges and find the minimum charges automatically for you. So what we mean by that is this. Let's take a look at this example. If I click on Adjustments for Minimum Charges in here, a new window pops open and the system's going to find any minimum charges. So notice in here I've got a minimum charge electrical. Now let me kind of share with you this example. So when we were estimating in our estimating module, I applied some electrical outlet covers to a room, maybe 6 of them. The system saw that item and it's saying, oh, well, you need to pay $200 to bring an electrician out to perform that work. Well, you're not going to bring an electrician out just to remove and reset some electrical covers, right? The painter's going to do that. So the system kicked into gear and found this minimum charge. It's up to me as the user to come in and say, nope, I don't want to include that. So notice I just deselect that little check mark. I hit OK, and now my minimum charges went away because it zeroed out. So I'm not paying those minimum charges. Now, if you need to find that again, you can come up to Configure Totals Page Layout, and you'll see this is where we can go ahead and configure overhead and profit. You can calculate on total cost or ACV. Taxes are displayed in here. So this is the General tab. And again, I got here by going to Configure Totals Page Layout. So that's what I'm seeing in the General tab. In the Minimum Charges tab, this is where I'll find all that information again. So again, I can come in and choose whether or not to include the minimum charge. So once again, the system finds the minimum charges. It kind of kicks into gear, finds them for you. You simply estimate the damage that you see. The system finds the minimum charge. It's up to you to come in and accept it or decline it. All right, so another thing you might want to use on your totals page is this comment section in here. So if there's any commonly used phrases or verbiage that you always want to include at the end of an estimate, or if you want to include your contact information, anything like that, comments is a section where you can do that. So if I click on comments, this window pops open, and I can go ahead and include whatever text I want to show up here on my totals page. Now notice there's a little link for something called the quick list. The quick list, if you recall from our Getting Started module, we talked about preferences, and in preferences, one of the options is a quick list. So the quick list is kind of commonly used phrases or text that you might find yourself typing over and over again. Well, if you add it to your quick list, then you don't have to type it every single time. You simply would add it from your quick list. So you could edit your quick list from here. If I had entries, I would see, commonly used verbiage or my contact information, etc. So you can choose to add something that way as well. Notice up here, guys, there's this little section that says in progress. That's called an estimate status. Now, statuses really have to do with workflow. And so keep in mind that every company's workflow might be a little different. So this could be something that's really important to you, and it could be something that's not important to you. It really depends on your company, who you're writing claims for, and what the established workflow is. If your established workflow includes marking an estimate status, this step will be really, really important. So in progress is the current status, and if I click on it, I get a drop down. Most likely, your workflow will be marking it ready for review. One of the last things you'll do when you're all done with all your work, you'd come in here and you would mark it ready for review. Again, it really depends on company workflow, etc. But if the estimate status is important to your workflow, this is where you'll find it, and you'll need to make sure that you mark it ready for review before you finalize this claim. So an important step in terms of workflow. Notice that we see it up here in the top left-hand corner, and I'm on the totals page. You'll also see it up here in the summary. You'll also see it when you're in the recap. You'll also see it when you're on the estimate tab. So whatever tab you're in, on your estimate, you'll see in the top left-hand corner the estimate status in progress, and you can change it to whatever you need it to be set to. Personally, I think it makes the most sense on the totals page. It's kind of a reminder for me. I'm kind of on the totals page, I'm finalizing everything, and I remember to mark my estimate status. All right, so we've talked about, how to work your way through your estimate and review it, how to customize the view and get things set up according to your needs. What if you need to print this estimate? You need to share it with somebody. So there's a little printer icon up here in the top left-hand corner. And if I click on it, it's going to take a second and load. And a window will pop open. And what we see in here, this should kind of look familiar to it. It kind of looks very similar to the structure that we see within the Claim Explorer. So let's take a second and kind of just scroll through here, and I'm seeing, I can choose to print my loss summary, the diagrams, the estimate. If you added photos, you could choose to print that. So it really looks similar to the Claim Explorer in here. Whatever has a check mark will be printed. So notice in here I just have estimate and totals. If you wanted to print a diagram, you could. You go select that. Now notice there's some tabs in here. If I click on options, under options, I'm going to see printer, and this is going to show me whatever printer driver is installed on this computer. And so if you have a PDF driver on here, you can print it to a PDF and then email that PDF to the insured or to whoever needs to take a look at that. Now the system's going to remember where you printed to last, so if the last time you printed was to your home printer, that's where it's going to default to. If the last time you printed it was to a PDF, that's what it's going to remember. So you can come in here and change that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on print just so you can kind of see what this would look like. Pretty much what you see is what you get in terms of however you chose to kind of customize your estimate view. That's what it's going to look like when you choose to print it. So remember, I added that note. I can see that in here. And if I scroll all the way down, I'll scroll down to my totals page. Thanks for joining us as we learned how to review an estimate. Make sure you check out the next training module as we look at the final steps of working a claim.